Dzień dobry, w kolejnym odcinku podcastu dla mężczyzny, Książka dla mężczyzny. Witają Was
Łukasz Antas.
i Michał Pyziak. Zaciąłem się dlatego, że dzisiaj mamy specjalnego gościa. Tym gościem jest Ya'acovem Darling Khanem, twórca ruchu Movement Medicine, szkoły Movement Medicine i dlatego też dzisiejszy podcast, dzisiejsza rozmowa będzie prowadzona po angielsku. Ya'acovem Darling Khanem, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be with you.
Mhm.
Yes, and we will be talking about one of your books because you are the author of quite a few books, and it's Jaguar in the Body, Butterfly in the Heart. If you have, Michał, the book, you can present
Yes, just a moment, just a moment.
and the book written by you for me,
Yes. The book in a wonderful cover is here.
and it is in Polish. We highly recommend you to buy and read it. And we'll talk a little bit about the book and also about your philosophy, your experiences, and so on. And if we can start with the book, which for me it's very important because it's showing how to go through the many obstacles in order to obtain personal power. In your case, it's being a leader, being a shaman, a spiritual leader, but it's a path which can be repeated by many others also here in Poland. So if you could give us a short description about the book, how do you feel it?
Well, thank you very much. I wrote that book because I really wanted, particularly, to make an offering to the next generation. I understand we live in a time which is many people see as very deeply challenging for young people, and all the challenges we face with social media and not really being very embodied, and so many things going on in the wider world. And I wanted to write something for that generation, the generation of our son, in fact, who is now 34, to really describe through my own journey that facing challenges and challenges being very much a part of our day-to-day life has always been a part of our human experience. And it's not unusual that today we face these challenges. And I also really wanted to encourage people to do the work necessary to discover and to deepen their own personal power. Why personal power? Well, the world needs empowered people who have heart, who are engaged with their life, who are engaged with family, who are aware of what's going on in the world, who wish to make an impact. And as I grew older, I discovered more and more that in order to make a positive impact, we need to heal our relationship with power, because we need to be strong, we need to be powerful. And strong doesn't necessarily mean tough. It means emotionally resilient, resourced. And my journey, particularly through my shamanic initiation, was a lot about facing the places inside me where I was disempowered through my own upbringing, through my ancestral experience. And so there was a lot of work that needed to be done personally that wasn't just for me, but it was for my family, it was for my ancestors, it's for my friends, it's for all the people that I wish to be in good relationship with. The stronger that each one of us can become in our sense of who we are, the better it is for our collective community health, for the health of our species. And there are so many people in this world who have a lot of power, but are not really doing their own shadow work. And we know that power can corrupt. It often does. So in order to become powerful without being corrupted, one must learn the road of humility. And humility is a recognition that there are far greater powers than us. And that's particularly my road in shamanic practice, is to support people to recognize the resources that we as human beings are made from. We are far more resourced than we are taught. We're not taught that we are made of elemental power, that our ancestry is a source of strength, not just a source of trouble, that the challenges that we face in shamanic language, those challenges are often called allies. Mm-hmm. They're allies, like a big rock that suddenly appears right in front of you, and you feel like, I can't get past this. And the only way that we can get past it is to go through it. And that means to be willing to do the work which is helping us to recognize the difference between our ego structures, how we have developed to survive in the world, and the soul, the very unique being that each of us has deep within us. And I believe very passionately that you, all of us, have something of great value to offer in this world. And developing power, and that's what this book is really about, is the journey to be able to bring, we call it medicine, your medicine into this world.
Thank you for sharing this. And Ya'acov, when I was reading this book, for me, this book was mostly about the spiritual journey. And of course, your personal experience with spirituality. When I talk to men, I see that for so many men, spirituality is something abstract. Yeah? Sometimes they don't know what is it about. In your opinion, what role does spirituality play in a man's life?
It's a great question. Well, I think, number one, I understand this experience that spirituality often feels like it's something abstract or exotic. It belongs somewhere over there in the Amazon, or to indigenous people, or to people who are just have that spiritual longing. But I actually believe that all of us, all human beings, have a spiritual longing. And what does that mean? It means that we have a longing for connection with the bigger context in which our personal lives exist. So often we think of, we're involved in our own challenges, how we survive, how we make money, how we find partners, how we father, all of these normal everyday challenges, but without a sense of connection to a greater power, and not something abstract, which is why I love shamanic practice, because shamanic practice is not about ideas. It's about the direct, physical, embodied experience of knowing that we are connected to something greater than us. And that can be something as simple as the ground under our feet, as the sky above our head, as the storm that's blowing through our land right now. The force of nature that we are made from. And we work through the body in order to help people, and men in particular, to have that direct experience in the body. And when we are grounded in our physicality, and we recognize that this material that our bodies are made from came from the nuclear furnace of exploding stars billions of years ago. This material has taken on so many forms before it took on the form of this body. Therefore, there is experience, there is wisdom, there is knowledge in our muscles, in our bones. So our work is very much about helping people to find a connection with that greater power that's not based in dogma. It's not based in this book or that way of doing things. It's based in direct, physical, moving, breathing, lived experience.
Okay, so my question, because I have experienced what you are talking about by movement medicine practice, but to make it more clear for an ordinary man who has a work, children, medical problems sometimes, and so on and so on and so on, how can we combine this experience of being part of something greater, that we are a source and supported, in the ordinary day? I wake up, I go to the job, I have sometimes not very nice conversation, I come back, I give it back to my children, which is not correct, and so on and so on. Can you give us the pro tip to the people here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so much to do with mindset. It's so much to do with the internal dialogue, like the way we talk to ourselves, our expectations about who we are, about what life is, about our creativity or lack of it. And so for me, to bring spirituality into the real world means having even just 5 minutes at the beginning of the day to come back or come into a place inside me that you could call an oasis or a refuge, a place where the mind is not in control, like with all these thoughts of, oh my God, all these things I've got to do, but is actually more quiet, more still, more connected, more intentional. So I begin the day with a very simple meditation called 21 Gratitudes, where I have trained myself to begin the day. My first 21 thoughts are thank yous. Thank you for the roof over my head. Thank you that when I open my eyes, I see. Thank you that when I get out of bed, gravity still exists, and that the earth is still, there is still this amazing attraction between my physical body and the living earth underneath me called gravity. When I get in the shower and the water is hot, I'm giving thanks to the warmth of the sun, to the fluidity of the waters, and slowly, slowly I take hold of my mindset. So rather than my mind being like an old playlist that's just going round again and again and again, old experiences, all the things that happened, all the reasons, all the excuses why I can't be empowered, why I'm not creative, why my life is so difficult. We can change our starting point in the day. Also at night when we go to sleep, to take a moment to say thank you. And then this is not about, we say it's not putting sugar on shit. We understand that life is challenging. It is. But remembering the extraordinary privilege we have of being alive in a body, having people to care for, having work to go to, having food to eat. These simple things just slowly shift the balance between the mindset that's like makes the body heavy and turned in or rigid and I've got to manage, and somehow we can find within us through moving the body, through breathing, through a good piece of music, through like get up, put on a really good piece of music, let that rhythm move you and get embodied before you begin the day. And this will slowly shift that internal balance from depression or just looping round the stories of the ego, the limited sense of self. It helps us to break through into a wider perspective, and also to remember these resources that I'm talking about: gravity, earth, fire, sunlight, the warmth of that water in the shower, the way I cook my egg in the morning. There are so many opportunities to recognize in the day how we are connected to something elemental, something strong, something that can resource us. And over time, that balance shifts. And it's not even about the weekend workshop. Like I go, I release myself, I shake out all of my stress, I remember what matters to me, and then I just go back into my life and nothing changes. Building that bridge between those kinds of experiences that I'm talking about and your day-to-day life is the purpose of movement medicine. It's the purpose of our work. And I'll tell you this, you don't have to think of yourself as a dancer. I know for many men, and I was one of them, dancing was uncomfortable. It was like, oh, I feel so self-conscious. Like, the room's full of 70-80% women and a few guys, and they all seem to know what they're doing, and I just feel awkward. The journey from that place to a place of recognizing that the unbroken intelligence of life is beating your heart right now, is moving you, is moving through your blood, is repairing you, is preparing you for the day ahead. Taking a few minutes at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, to return to that oasis is the way that I've found, and we know we've worked with many thousands of people all around the world. And this work isn't for special people.
Yeah.
You don't need to be some special kind of person in order to discover that you are creation. You are unique. Not just your thumbprint, but what we call your soul print. The thing that will never be repeated, that is you.
Talking about the soul print, I think it's a very important topic, not only in Poland probably, but it's like combining the spirituality with this personal power. And I know that your vision and your wife vision, movement medicine, has impact all over the world right now. But let's imagine ordinary man being a father, for example, but still he needs to be a leader. I mean, he needs to have this soul print discovered. How can we find this?
Well, there's one thing that there's no way round, and that is you have to find two things. Number one is the courage. You have to find the courage to get over self-consciousness and move towards consciousness. Self-consciousness is a step forward from unconsciousness, but it's much better when self-consciousness becomes consciousness. And to those fathers who are struggling, like to lead, to find your purpose. It's necessary. I would say it's not a luxury. It's an absolute necessity to take time, just like our ancestors did, when the spring returns, when the summer and summer sun is at its highest, when we're in the autumn, as we're moving through the seasons. Our ancestors would go into ceremony. And ceremony, again, for us is not about belief. It's not about, oh, you have to believe in the spiritual, you have to believe in the spirits, you have to have some kind of special shamanic ability. No, this is human. This is our human inheritance, to give time to remember what it is that matters to you, and step by step to put that really in the driving seat of your life. So it's not something that becomes a hobby, and it's, it doesn't mean you have to change your job or, change your relationship. Sometimes, yeah, change happens, but it's really about remembering what it is that gives you a sense of purpose. Purpose is everything. Like, if you don't have a purpose, you're like a feather in the wind, and whatever storm comes along just picks you up and puts you over here, and then picks you up and puts you over there, and you're moving from one thing to another. And there is so much confusion about our masculine identity in the world at the moment. We've had this for the last 20 years, this idea of toxic masculinity. Well, of course, there is such a thing as toxic masculinity, but my wife and I, Susanna, we've been together. This year it will be 40 years. And one of the things we've discovered is that toxic masculinity doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in relationship to toxic femininity. And toxic relationship is one of the things that causes so much suffering for us. And I want to say to you, those of you listening to this, your masculinity is not toxic in its nature. It's neutral in its nature. It just has a particular function and role. And if you embrace that and recognize the value of that masculinity, the value of being a clear leader, the value of protecting what you love and care for. And of course, men are not just masculine. We're all, everything that lives is a blend of more yin, more receptive, more soft, more emotional, and more yang, more active, more directional, more expressive. All of us have that blend. But in order to become really, I would say, compassionate or wise leaders in work, in family, with our friends, we need to take the time to discover or rediscover that purpose that gives our lives meaning. Otherwise, we are dreaming somebody else's dream. We're living out other people's ideas about how we should be. We should spend our lives earning more and more and more and more money, and having bigger and bigger and bigger houses, and bigger and bigger and bigger cars, and gaining more and more and more status in the world. And, the people who I've worked with who already did that, who are CEOs of major companies, they all reach that point of recognizing, well, that's not it. That's not the thing that actually really matters. What matters is something much deeper, much more personal, much more related to who you are. So purpose, self-discovery, taking the time to really open the door to your own natural creativity is what gives us that capacity to, we say, to dance with whatever life brings. And in that way, if you're moving, you are so much more flexible than if you're just set and, you know, life comes along and you just react in the ways that you always react. You're robotic in your living. And it's such a tragedy when men don't take that time to remember and to connect to that, we call it your guiding star, your guiding principles, the things that really give you ground, so that when you go to work, that work that you're doing is connected to that purpose. Okay, well, my purpose is to look after my children and my wife. So I'm going to work, and maybe it's not the best work and maybe it's challenging, but I know why I'm going there. And that already makes a difference.
Yes.
I've got one question about this spiritual path. Are there any risks along this path that we should be aware of?
Like,
Say again, Lukasz?
I mean, is there any traps on the spiritual path? You mentioned one, this sugar on the sheet.
Yeah. Well, of course, I'm sure your listeners will have heard of spiritual bypassing, which basically means using a spiritual, intellectual mindset to diminish problems or suffering and say, oh yeah, suffering, oh yeah, no, I'm doing my yoga, I'm doing my meditation. That suffering has nothing to do with me. And there's a separating from life rather than an engagement with life. There are many challenges. I mean, of course, life itself is deadly, isn't it? We're all going to die. And so, yes, there are risks. The risks are that you will feel. And what you feel won't always be the kind of ecstasis which gives you a big smile. Sometimes we need to cry. Sometimes we need to have a healthy relationship with our firepower, our anger. We need to learn to manage and be patient and committed to working with our shadows. If we don't do that, then yeah, we can become one of those spiritual people that really has very little connection to what we might call the real world. We call them space cadets. They're the kind of people that could walk across the busiest motorway at rush hour, and they would have their head in the clouds. They wouldn't notice the cars going past. They're just like, whoa, I'm just walking across the road. And meanwhile, if they turned around, they'd see the chaos that they'd created by not being responsible, by not being present. That's the danger of spirituality, is that we can use it to distance ourselves from life, to separate ourselves from each other, rather than as a resource to engage with life, to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I would say the biggest challenge, certainly for me ongoingly, is I don't like feeling vulnerable. I don't like that feeling. I don't like that feeling of being defenseless. And there is no doubt that on the spiritual path, there are times when I have had to, and I know I will again, have to go into those places where I am needing help, needing support, needing guidance, needing community, needing love and holding. And so I think for men, a lot of it is to do with the idea that still exists, even in 2026, that all men shouldn't cry and we should be tough, we should manage, we should just get by. Where actually, you know, the deeper I go, the more tears I cry. And because life is moving, life is very moving, it's emotional. And so I would say, like, spirituality without the heart, without doing our heart work, creates all kinds of problems in people's lives. And of course, we also live in a time where there is so much plant medicine available. There are shamans popping up everywhere. You know, people who've done a weekend of work in the Amazon and come back and start running ceremonies and don't have the skill or the experience or the wisdom to know how to hold people as they go through those challenging experiences that can be catalyzed by psychedelic medicines, which are very popular. You know, I think they're incredibly useful in the right context. You know, indigenous people that we work with in the Amazon, unless you're training, like your life path is to train to become a shaman, and I can assure you that in the Amazon that's not a lot of fun. It's hard. It's really hard. Unless that's your pathway, you would probably do 3 to 5 ceremonies in the whole of your life. And you do those ceremonies to receive guidance. And then the indigenous way, or the way of the indigenous people that we are blessed to be in touch with, is then, I've had a vision. Now I need to make that vision manifest on this earth in my life. So why would I go back and do another ceremony when I haven't completed the first vision I received? So there are many challenges. I think people sometimes imagine that there are gurus or there are shamans who can somehow wave a feather and make it all right for us. And there are many very charismatic people around who, and people are, because we are wounded in our relationship to spirit, we often give away our power in a way that's not helpful to leaders. And, you know, we're always encouraging people that our work can be summed up in 3 sentences. One is stand up. Stand up inside yourself. Number 2, grow up. Become an adult. Take care of the wounds that we all carry. Transform those wounds into medicine, into personal power. So stand up, grow up, and thirdly, play your role in life that's connected to your purpose. And if you do that, your life will take on a meaning that you dreamt of. And even if the circumstances of your life remain very similar, your attitude, your mindset, your experience will change.
Thanks. I can share with our listeners that you will be in Poland this year on the Conscious Man Festival, so they will have a chance to listen and talk to you directly.
And to dance with you, I hope.
But
Yep.
last question, and kind of the, let's say, advice to the Polish males. If you could summarize, I mean, the kind of the pro tip. I want to be more aware, conscious during my ordinary day. I want to find my vision. So, like, what next step you would
Where to
propose?
start? Mm.
Yeah, I mean, there are many places to start. Many, many, many. That's one of the wonderful things about living in the modern world is there are 100,000 different pathways and more every week that you could take. The thing is, take a step in the direction of being willing to learn. And being willing to learn means being willing to make mistakes, being willing to feel foolish, to be a beginner. Like, I do something every year where I'm a complete beginner because it's so important to remember what that feels like where you go into a room and everyone seems to know what they're doing and you're like, what do I do? What's going on here? So if I was to be really practical, I'm biased. I would say dance. Get yourself to a movement medicine class. Go and just take a couple of hours of your life. Take the risk. Go there, listen, follow the words of the guides who are well trained, and see what your experience is. Because if you discover, like I did, the first dance workshop I went to in 1988, I was extremely uncomfortable. I remember going into that room and it was full of mostly women in doing all kinds of yoga poses and stretches, and then there was music playing and people were kind of dancing around, and I was like, oh my God, I've got to survive this whole weekend. But what I discovered was that within 15 minutes of following the advice of the teacher, who was Gabrielle Roth, who was this extraordinary pioneer of really old school ecstasis, like surrender to the beat, like really giving yourself to the rhythm, like letting go of control and letting yourself be moved, sweat, be like released from your idea of yourself. The journey from, as I said before, unconsciousness through self-consciousness into consciousness and creativity took me 15 minutes, and I'm not special. I know the same can be true for you. And we have on our online community maybe 40 15-minute practices. So you could take a free month and go and explore that and just do 15 minutes of practice 3 times a week and then see, does this make any difference? Does this change anything? If not, there are 100,000 other paths. Find something that somewhere deep inside you have this curiosity, this part of you that's still childlike in their fascination with possibilities, that is not set in, okay, well, I've reached my 30s now, I've got my job, I've got my family, I've just got to keep on climbing up that mountain one step at a time, keep going until I, in my 50s, I collapse from some kind of heart disease, heaven forbid. We have to begin, and we have to discover or remember that place inside us where curiosity and possibility are still very much alive in us. And it's that's your compass. That's your, like, the magnet between your soul evolving from where it is into what it can become. And when I say soul, I really mean the one that you are, the thing that's unique about you. And That's how you are in relationship, how you are with your kids, how you are with your friends. There is so much space for us to grow into. There's an infinite space for us to grow into. And all it takes is those two things, courage and two, will. Will I? Will you? Will you take that risk?
Ya'acov, thank you for sharing your experience, your path, and your heart with us, with our listeners. It will be a great opportunity to see you in person in Poland in July. So we are looking forward to this meeting.
And me too, very much. I hope to get to meet those of you who are listening, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will switch to Polish. Dziękuję Wam za obecność, za słuchanie. Jeżeli możecie puścić dalej ten podcast, żeby jeszcze więcej mężczyzn i generalnie ludzi mogło się zapoznać z tym, będziemy Wam bardzo wdzięczni. I do zobaczenia w kolejnym odcinku. Dziękujemy.
Do zobaczenia. Dziękujemy i zachęcamy do przeczytania książki Jakowa. Jeszcze raz powtórzę tytuł: Jaguar w ciele, motyl w sercu. Jaguar in the body, butterfly in the heart. Thank you, Ya'acov.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.